again, everyone. I have a great privilege of welcoming Sukey Novagratz, our next guest. She's somebody who's doing a very diverse set of work in the world. This particular talk, we're going to be focusing on mindfulness, healing, and VR, virtual reality. But she brings a pretty rich background from a variety of areas to her work here. As a co-founder of Maloka, she's done some very interesting early work, but developing work in how we can use VR to develop a mindfulness and meditation practice. She's also the co-author of a book called Just Sit that many of you might be familiar with. And she's a dedicated researcher in the fields of consciousness, healing, and human potential, like so many of us, informed by her own life journey and stories. So welcome, Sukey, and let's jump in. I'm sure that our time is going to fly by. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what drove you into this field. What's your own journey that brought you into this area of attention to mindfulness and healing, and maybe even into tech and VR? I would love to hear how that all got connected in your path.
They're two different, sort of connections, but like for many of us, right? Trauma and wanting to heal, getting to the other side of healing is what brought me to mindfulness and meditation. And not originally, my father taught me how to meditate as a kid, and it wasn't until he passed that, actually dealing with grief of that loss. My husband was like, after 2 years, it's like, honey, like you need help, and actually he sent me on my first meditation retreat. And then of course, that's when like the layers of the onion reveal, and you're like, oh, right, that trauma. But when I was 17, I was 38, and still sort of looped in that, pain cycle, that pain body. And so, meditation and then all these other journeys I took all over the place to sort of, try to get to the other side of that. It's been a lifelong passion and liberation.
Amazing, amazing. And I know from some prior chats that you actually developed an interest specifically in VR very early on. Tell us, what is Maloka? I have the advantage of knowing because I've been lucky enough to get in and play with it a little bit myself, but what is Maloka and how did it come to be in the world?
Well, to be fair, I did not think that, VR was going to be sort of, a great place for mindfulness. In fact, in the beginning, when someone said, oh, you should try VR, I'm just like, okay, sorry. Like, putting something on your head is no way to sort of connect with yourself. And when I first went into VR headsets, my brother-in-law gave me one because I love technology. I was someone who, was the first to have like the Mac computer when everyone had their IBMs, I had the first phone, I had the first iPod, but like, and so he gave me this as a gift thinking, oh, she loves to be the first. And I got motion sickness and I thought, oh, I'll put that down. And it wasn't until years later that I was actually in Attica doing a TEDx there. My sister-in-law and I were doing a meditation there, and a person from Galaxy who I knew was there and said, well, have you ever tried VR? And I said, yes, but no, really. And he put me in. And this time, it's the Oculus Quest, and so the technology was so much better, and I didn't throw up immediately. In fact, I didn't throw up at all. And I suddenly saw like my observer self, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second, like it's right there, like that awareness muscle, that's so intangible when you're starting to sort of a meditation practice, when you're falling into that place of like, oh, being observing yourself, and that you can have that in a really sort of immediate way because you're immersed. And then I did like a dive in terms of the technology where, they say like studies have shown that your brain in VR is like your brain in psychedelics, that it sort of silences your default mode network, which is sort of where the seat of the ego is. And so it creates this sort of plasticity. And I was sort of like, well, our brains will soon figure out how to, find a way to default in this new space eventually. So I don't know if we have 30 years, 100 years, 5 years, but here's an opportunity to use VR in a particular way to help people develop that awareness muscle.
That's incredible. So was it really that being able to be kind of outside of yourself that triggered it? And how do you, if that's the case, how do you use that in the user experience today? So if one of us was to have, even if it's not at its full level of maturity, I know you're still in a development mode in a lot of ways. Can you describe what the user experience is for a practitioner who might want to use the Maloka offering to advance their practice in some way or enhance it in some way?
Well, we have a vortex meditation, which is essentially like a focus meditation. And so there's these images that you look at, and there's music. And so what's really helpful is that, some of the things that sort of trip, you up in the beginning, at least for me, was that, meditation could be boring, and also you're sitting there like, well, am I doing it right? Or afterwards, you could be like, well, did it work? And so when you put a headset on, because of that immersive quality, you're sort of like, I call it like, having the mother's hug, you're held in this space, and so you can take an exhale. There's a permission to exhale because there's a level of safety there. And then, the visuals and the sound sort of, are the cues. So it keeps you in your limbic brain. So we have some guided, but a lot of it's to sort of, keep you in your limbic brain. And so the prompts are more just auditory and visual. And so then, when you take it off, it's like you've had a change of state, and so, these are sort of, training wheels, that help you keep on showing up, to get the deep work of meditation. So, you sort of can clog in more hours. Hopefully, that's the goal.
Incredible. And what surprised you about it as you see people explore in this new format? And I know you're doing a lot of research as well. What's come across that's been unexpected, that it's making you maybe kind of reconsider either the original intention, or kind of craft the path of the product in a way that it's emerging now?
Well, when we first developed it, it was sort of a single player use. There was only sort of like a vortex meditation. And now we have 3 different portals. One is embodied breath work, and another is sound bath and healing. And so, who am I to say like what's going to work for you, right? So, I mean, I love, sitting in meditation, and I love the vortex meditation, but, embodied breath work is something that, someone who's more kinesthetic might help them get, in their body, change their state to sort of, control their nervous system. For others, being, in the sound meditation where they're lying down and just sort of like, the music and the colorful images are just sort of embracing you in a way that, sort of taps into what you need in that moment, and so that was sort of, being able to sort of evolve it and grow and change and have these portals for people. And it's really quite nice. We were up at Mount Sinai and these doctors were trying it out. And it was interesting how in each portal, I could guess where they were by how they were sitting.
That's cool.
And it was really exciting, to sort of see people who were not native to VR, to quickly get in there and to sort of, to meditate, to sort of be able to relax, give themselves permission to let go. And that was really exciting.
Yeah, that's great. And I love this kind of recurring theme, even of today, but in talking with you about this product and this idea as it's coming forth, is this notion of accessibility. Not only that, I mean, you wouldn't think of VR as necessarily accessible because there's a headset dependency and we have all this kind of hardware pickup that's going to be moving at its own pace. I think some of us had hoped maybe that would have been accelerated by COVID, but it is where it is and it's coming along as it is. But it's more kind of, I think, that point that you raised about if you change the perception or the experience of something that, as you note, could feel boring or like a chore, and you make it more inviting or, as you said, accessible to different cohorts of people, it does broaden this experience up quite a bit. One thing that I noticed, even just in my early playing with it, was a sense of joy. Like it feels like a joyful experience. What can you share about, like, what role does joy have in a mindfulness practice or work, and how does that inform what you're doing with your
well, I'm so happy that's what you experienced, because that was sort of really what we were leading with, with joy and magic,
Yeah.
Like, and oftentimes my kids, they're just like, Mom, what, you always see it from this perspective. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
The shamans always say, like, you Americans, you love to dream the nightmare, and that stuck with me. I'm just like, yes, like in Maloka, I want to dream, like the magic, dream the joy, and that, it's a place to sort of tap into that reserve that we all have, and look, it's not that bad things won't happen, but our response, we can't change that. It's like not fighting with reality, but embracing it and tapping into the reserves of joy that we have, and feeling, as Mark was saying before, feeling all your feelings, but that, having as our base, knowing that joy is always there and accessible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I always think about it a little bit as a swing of a pendulum too, because, we can have these experiences of difficulty or trauma in our lives, and, we come to different ways of responding to the world, and the pendulum can swing a bit. And I think your offering of a joyful or a joy-inspiring experience through technology that can be adapted to a user is actually super powerful.
Yeah, and you get rewards, and you have like trees that you plant, and then you can garden, and you can get energy from them, and this like inner flourishing. The hope is that will sort of lead to an external flourishing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So on that theme, and you just touched on it, there is also this playfulness energy that you can't ignore when you get into Maloka the first time. It invites play and a kind of a levity in an experience that I personally hadn't found among other teachers or practices in that way before. There are colors, and it's sort of soft, and you have your little avatar who's engaging with you in this way. Was your thinking around that to engage with the childlike and adults? Or, I mean, as a mother of 4 and having had your own family meditation and mindfulness practices, are you tailoring this to a younger generation at the same time? What's the kind of thought around that demographic wise?
I don't think that has like an age demographic,
Mhm.
play. I mean, I think, yes, like children play, the
Yeah.
sad part is that we grow up and out of it, as opposed to continuing to play, and that's sort of the begin again. That's the also, like, not to take things so seriously. That's the sort of like, oh yeah, I screwed that up, but yeah, I'm going to try again, and it's a forgiveness, the self-forgiveness. And then you can forgive other people for what, what they didn't, make expectations that they didn't meet, and then you can tap into more joy, more love, and more shine that way. And, we say it's not a practice, and we're playing off the game thing as well. Obviously, it's not practice, it's play, and to bring more play into the practice, and it's there. I mean, even in the most like, serious meditation teachers I've had, I mean, they talk about, right, the dance of life, right, and how we dance with life, and it's sort of, not losing that curiosity and confidence that comes with sort of not knowing and stepping into that void and trusting, that the music, that the sound, will support you.
That's great. Amazing. So if, I know you're doing a lot of deep dive research, and you're using a lot of, feedback to inform how this will develop, and sort of the lighter and the dark sides of VR. And I had, even in our brief conversation earlier this week, a sense of how attentive you're being to intentionality and how it evolves. If you could envision a state of Maloka in 5 or 10 years, what are some of your hopes and dreams for how this might impact people, or how it might reach in the world? Like, what is your fantasy in this kind of joyful expression of the work you're doing with Maloka?
I mean, my fantasy would be sort of like that Maloka would be sort of, a keeper of a sacred metaverse, that's coming, that people can enter there. I mean, my office where I'm right now, we call it, the wellness lab. There's every kind of, like singing bowl, this, what have you. I've got the Lucia light, all these different things that Maloka, becomes this wellness platform and metaverse where people can feel, a sense of sacredness, and a place where they can come to get whole.
Super cool. So we're almost out of time because time is zooming by. If people want to learn more, how do they find you, learn more about Maloka? How do they keep up?
Well, Maloka is now you can, Maloka is spelled Maloka. And we're on App Labs right now on their beta. We're in beta. We launch December 16th. But you could also go to Maloka, mymaloka.com to find more information there.
Excellent. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We're just about at time here. I know we have a little bit more packed into today. It was so good to see you. Thank you for taking the time to share your vision and your work with us, and really excited to see what you continue to do, both in your immediate and in the fantasy world. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. All right.
All right.
Be well.
Take care, Sukey.